Hello there, we have some new Star Wars comics to talk about with the release of the one-shot A New Legacy and the first issue of the new ongoing series, Legacy of Vader. So let's start with A New Legacy, which has three separate stories in it: the Grand Imperial Jubilee, For the Love of the Empire, and Rogue's Gambit. Now, the Grand Imperial Jubilee is written by Charles Soule and sees Doctor Aphra and Sanastaros headed for an Imperial function in order to steal an artifact, but also on their way there is the duo of Beilert, Valance, and Rick Duel, who are there to collect a bounty on the previous two. Things get worse when a stormtrooper is possessed by an ancient Sith mask that belonged to Darth Momin, who we learned about in Soule's run of Darth Vader back in 2017, 2018. This story is the longest of the three, and it certainly feels just like a Doctor Aphra adventure. It's a fun little story. I liked the reappearance of Momin's mask. Aphra and Sana are always a fun duo to watch in action. I always like it when Valance turns up. I have no idea, I cannot remember who Rick Duel really is. I know that I have read him in a comic before. I cannot think of where though. All that said though, it's nothing really more than just a fun little romp. It's certainly enjoyable, but I feel like it pales in comparison to the second story in this comic, which I'll talk about in a minute. I feel like I'll say this a lot in this video, but for this one shot, A New Legacy, it's all about celebrating 10 years of Marvel. And it felt like the stories that we got in this comic book were just sort of regular old stories that we would get in any comic book. So, I don't know. I think I expected something more from the stories. I liked the writing, I liked the art style, I like the characters in this story. I like it when we get Sith shenanigans like this. So I did enjoy this story, but it did just feel like it could have been any issue of a Doctor Aphra comic. So I was a little disappointed in it. I really can't say the same though for the second short story in this one shot, which is called For the Love of the Empire. Now this was written by Jason Aaron and features the return of Squadron, who I feel like we haven't seen since issue 61 of the mainline Star Wars run back in 2019. Now I love Squadron. I have the Black Series of Sergeant Creel right here. I think there's only one other Black Series figure of Squadron. I think it's Mick, which I don't have. If you don't know who Squadron is, they've been in the comics since like 2015, 2016 of the mainline Star Wars run, and they're essentially the Stormtrooper version of the Bad Batch. Although technically they were around before the Bad Batch, so actually the Bad Batch is actually the clone version of them. Funnily enough, they're both called like Task Force 99 and Clone Force 99, so they're definitely like mirrors. This story is about Squadron going planet to planet, hunting down rebels and rebel sympathizers. It's only 10 pages long, so it time jumps a lot between the pages. It's a very, very quick story, and it just shows them shutting down rebel recruitments and bases on different planets, and it ends on a really, really dark note. Creel basically sets Squadron loose on a town that they had previously liberated of rebels, only to return to at a later date and find that they have now joined the rebellion's side. So Creel basically just lets Squadron run amok on the town, including a whole bunch of children who are dressed up as heroes of the rebellion, and they pretty much just burn the town and everyone in it to the ground. It's a pretty dark and brutal ending to a very little 10-page story, but it was very effective because the Marvel comics, they don't usually go this dark. They're pretty, like, they get dark sometimes, but they don't get this dark. They're not like Dark Horse. So I was actually very surprised at this one, but I loved it. Again, only 10 pages longer. I do hope that this is laying the groundwork for Squadron to return when the new mainline Star Wars run starts up in May, because I love this group of characters. I do wish they were fleshed out a lot more. I would love a mini-series just about Squadron, or hell, even give them their own ongoing comic. I would love that, just to get to know them more. But yeah, I honestly loved this second story, thought it was fantastic. The last story is Rogue's Gambit, and was written by Kieran Gillen and takes place just before the Vader Down arc back in 2015. This one is even smaller at only 5 pages long and features Aphra again, along with the droids 000 and BT-1, who get into a disagreement with Black Chrysanthemum over a game of Dejarik, which results in Chrysanthemum trying to smash 000's face against a wall. Vader eventually arrives and puts everyone in their place, and that's about it. It's funny. It's a funny, but it's a silly 5 pages. It's a nice palate cleanser after the Squadron story, I'll give it that. But that's about it. It's very forgettable. When writing my notes for this, I just had to go back and reread the comic because I couldn't remember anything really noteworthy to talk about. I think the image of Chrysanthemum smashing the droid against the wall is very funny, but honestly, that's about it. It's a kind of a nothing story. So yeah, overall, I love the For the Empire story. I think that one is great. The Jubilee story was all right. The last one, fine, whatever. I did sort of expect, like I said, I expected more out of this issue as a whole, as it was heralded as being this celebration of 10 years of Marvel Comics, and I really only loved one of the 3 stories in it. Not that they were bad, but I just didn't think they did a particularly good job of being a celebration of Star Wars comics. Fun, but kind of forgettable in a way, but I do highly recommend the second story. We now get to Legacy of Vader number 1, which is written by Charles Soule, with art from Luke Ross. Now, first of all, I am so happy that we are getting a sequel era ongoing comic book. The era is absolutely ripe for being filled in with more stories between the movies. I'm over the moon that we're getting this, and we've also got Poe Dameron mini-series later in the year. Now, I really enjoyed this first issue, which takes place right after The Last Jedi. We see Kylo Ren assume the role of Supreme Leader of the First Order, and while I love these first few pages and the art, there is something so incredibly funny to me that they decided to put Snoke's body in 2 separate boxes because he was cut in half. That visual absolutely took me out of it for a second, and I just couldn't help but laugh. I was cackling at this. I just thought it was so funny. And it's definitely not supposed to be funny in the moment, but it was so funny that they were like, well, he's been cut in half, we better get 2 boxes, we can't just put him in 1 box. So that was kind of fucking hilarious in my opinion. But Ren shows off the corpse to the First Order and unceremoniously force pushes Snoke's body parts out into space. Now, one of the bigger themes and struggles within Kylo Ren was of letting go of the past. Kill it if you have to, he says. And that's pretty much the through line that this comic seems to be taking. Kylo Ren is a bit broken at this point in time. He's haunted by his experience with Luke on Crate. He's still haunted about him killing his own father. He's unsure of himself and whether or not he can live up to the legacy of his grandfather, Darth Vader, or is he doomed to just live in his shadow? And I feel like there is a little bit of a meta commentary on this as well, as the comic is actually just named Legacy of Vader, and not Kylo Ren, or Kylo Ren Legacy of Vader, as I originally thought it was called. So I just thought that was a very nice touch. Having the comic be named Legacy of Vader, yeah, he's living in his shadow. He will never be Darth Vader. We see Hux groveling to Kylo, and we get to see his frustrations really start to boil with Kylo Ren after he orders him to make him a throne. Kylo then heads back to Mustafar to seek out Fortress Vader, and I love these panels on the page here. Upon arrival, he does battle with some of the Alazmec, who are a group of Sith cultists who worshipped Vader, and I just love these pages of him sort of just dispatching them like a wild animal. It's great, and it calls back to the beginning of Rise of Skywalker when he is back on this planet doing the same. Kylo eventually comes face to face with Vader. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but that's how I'm going to pronounce it, who we first saw all the way back in Rogue One as Vader's attendant. Well, he is still on Mustafar and taking care of the castle, but he's looking a little bit different than when we last saw him. Vader offers to help Kylo Ren by showing him how, instead of killing the past, Vader used his past to channel it into his own power. Kylo accepts this offer and the issue ends there. I just enjoyed this issue a lot. I loved seeing Mustafar and those cultists again. The return of Vader was unexpected but welcome. I did wonder what became of him after the Ghosts of Vader's Castle run, and I just like the character work that's been done with Kylo Ren. I really enjoy it. If you haven't read it already, check out The Rise of Kylo Ren. It's a 4-part mini-series that shows some of his fall to Snoke and more on the Knights of Ren. It's a really good prelude to this issue, I think. I enjoyed the art a lot. These big pages filled with panels of Ren just slicing and dicing are great to look at. All the First Order fleet sort of there. I just love this stuff. It's just really fun. I'm certainly keen to see where this goes in the future. More sequel era content is most welcome to me. It's an era that desperately needs filling in, filling out, and, you know, having some of its holes plugged. So I'm really excited for more of this. And yeah, that's about it. So a new Legacy and Legacy of Vader are out now. Go give them a read if you haven't. I recommend Legacy of Vader a lot more than I do the other one, but definitely seek it out for the second story, For the Love of the Empire. Really good story. Anyway, that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, make sure you follow me here and over on TikTok. More videos on the way, especially some lead up to Star Wars Celebration stuff. So yeah, make sure you follow me here. Anyway, thank you for watching, and may the Force be with you always.